What would you do if you had to choose between preserving your family's most precious legacy or giving it all up to survive? That was the cruel reality Patrick faced. Patrick had always been a man of great resources, but life had a way of testing even the strongest. His restaurant, a small, cozy space on a busy corner of the city, was not just a business. It was a gift, a dream that his mother had nurtured for years and had lovingly entrusted to him before she passed away. But the situation was critical. The tables that had once been always full now remained empty. The bills were piling up, and Patrick saw no other way out than to sell the restaurant. He spent hours pacing the empty dining room, each step echoing to us as a reminder of the hardships he faced. Every time he looked at the walls, decorated with old photos and small objects that his mother had chosen with such care, his heart sank. Should I really get rid of this? Is this the end? He wondered silently, trying to ignore the growing weight in his chest. But there was a part of Patrick that couldn't let go. To him, the restaurant was more than just a place where people came to eat. It was a piece of his history, a reflection of his mother's love and dreams, a place that somehow seemed to hold her presence and legacy. As he wrestled with these questions, a new concern was knocking at the door. And it wasn't just figurative, it was literally knocking. When Patrick opened the door, he found Jorge, a young man with a tired look and worn clothes. He was hunched over from the cold and mumbling something that Patrick couldn't immediately understand. "Please, just a little food. Anything that can help me," Jorge said, his eyes filled with quiet desperation. Patrick stood there for a moment, as if caught between two worlds. On one side, the pressure of his own hardships. On the other, the echo of his mother's teachings. Never close the door to someone in need. And then, with a deep sigh, he opened the door wider. "Come in. Let's see what I can do for you." Little did Patrick know that by letting this young man cross the threshold of his restaurant, he was also crossing the threshold of a new story. A story that would change his life forever. Patrick led Jorge to one of the tables near the window. The empty restaurant seemed even more melancholy under the dim lights. While the young man sat down, Patrick went to the kitchen, looking for something to offer. He found a simple but hot dish and brought it to Jorge, who accepted it as if it were the greatest feast in the world. "Do you have a place to stay?" Patrick asked, watching the young man devour the food quickly. Jorge shook his head, swallowing hastily before answering. "No, I've been living on the streets for months. It's hard to explain. I just know that I had nowhere else to go." Patrick felt a pang in his chest. He didn't know Jorge's full story, but he recognized the pain in his eyes. That look of helplessness seemed familiar to him, a reminder of the despair he had felt over the past few months as he watched the restaurant and his mother's dream fall apart. "You can stay here for the night," Patrick said softly. "It's not much, but at least you'll be warm and safe." Jorge looked up in surprise. "Really? I don't even know how to thank you. No one has been this kind to me in a long time." As Jorge ate, Patrick couldn't help but think, how could he help anyone when he himself was so close to the bottom? But at the same time, there was something about Jorge that seemed to light a spark in his heart. Maybe, somehow, helping this young man could be a small light in the darkness he found himself in. That night, as Jorge slept in a small armchair in the corner of the restaurant, Patrick found himself thinking about his mother. He remembered the nights when she would close the restaurant with a smile on her face, even though she was tired. She always said, "This place isn't just about food. It's about people. It's about stories." In the silence of the early morning, Patrick looked at Jorge, who was sleeping soundly, and wondered, could he be part of this story? Could he somehow help me find a way to save this place? It was a strange thought, but Patrick couldn't shake the idea that Jorge had appeared in his life for a reason. Something was changing. He didn't know what yet, but he felt that this encounter was the beginning of something bigger. As the sun rose, bringing a timid light through the restaurant's windows, Patrick looked at Jorge once more and made a silent decision. He would give himself and the restaurant one more chance. And maybe, just maybe, Jorge could be part of that new attempt. The next morning, Jorge was nervous. He got up early and started setting the tables, trying to show Patrick that he was grateful for his help. Even with little experience, he did his best to contribute, although his clumsy movements betrayed his inexperience. Patrick watched from afar, torn between skepticism and a strange sense of hope. Maybe he just needs a chance, he thought, remembering when he himself started at the restaurant with his mother. The atmosphere was relatively calm until the door opened with a loud thud. Clayton, a customer known for his arrogance and difficult behavior, entered the restaurant. He wore an impeccable suit and carried a look of contempt. "I hope the service is decent today," he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. Patrick sighed. Clayton was the kind of customer that no restaurant wanted to have, but that none could afford to lose. Jorge, sensing the tension in the air, tried to be helpful and brought a glass of juice to Clayton's table. But that's when everything went wrong. As Jorge crossed the room with the glass in his hands, he tripped over a poorly adjusted rug. The juice flew through the air, hitting Clayton squarely. An orange stain spread across the man's impeccable suit, and the restaurant fell silent instantly. Jorge froze. He stared at Clayton with wide eyes, trying to stammer an apology, but shame and fear prevented him from speaking. Clayton, on the other hand, wasted no time. He stood up abruptly, shaking off his wetsuit. "This is absurd," Clayton shouted, attracting the attention of the few customers who were there. "This restaurant is already in decline, and now you hire just anyone? What kind of place is this?" Patrick tried to intervene. "Mr. Clayton, I apologize for the incident. It was an accident, and I will resolve it immediately." But Clayton was not willing to listen. "Solve it? How are you going to solve it? It's already clear that this place is going bankrupt. Look around you, Patrick. Do you think you can keep up with this kind of service?" Clayton's words cut deep. Jorge, still motionless, felt the weight of guilt grow in his chest. He knew he had messed up everything, and Patrick's disappointed look seemed to confirm it. Bruno, one of the oldest waiters in the restaurant, couldn't keep quiet. "With all due respect, Mr. Clayton, we're doing our best in difficult times. I know the service may not be perfect, but it's not fair to disrespect all of us like that." Clayton looked at Bruno with a sarcastic smile. "Doing our best? If that's your best, then maybe it's better to close the doors for good." The atmosphere was unbearably heavy. Other customers, uncomfortable with the situation, began to leave. Each door that closed behind them seemed to take a piece of Patrick's hope with it. When silence finally took over the restaurant, Patrick looked at Jorge and his team. He saw the frustration in Bruno's eyes, the regret on Jorge's face, and the concern on everyone else's face. The weight of the situation seemed overwhelming. "Is this what the restaurant has become?" Patrick thought, his heart sinking. But deep down, something kept him from giving up. "It's not over yet," he muttered to himself. That night, as he silently toadied up the restaurant, Patrick knew he had to find a solution. He had to protect what his mother had built, for himself, for his team, and now, even for Jorge, who seemed to be carrying the same sense of loss and helplessness that he himself felt. Even though the future was uncertain, Patrick decided that he would not let Clayton or any other hardship destroy what this restaurant meant. The fight was just beginning. The next morning, the restaurant was quieter than ever. Every member of the team felt the weight of the incident with Clayton. Jorge paced back and forth, head down, and Bruno avoided talking too much, trying to focus on his work. The atmosphere was tense, and Patrick knew he had to act before this completely destroyed everyone's morale. That's when Rebecca walked through the door, tall, with a confident countenance and a determined look in her eyes. She brought an energy that seemed capable of breaking the suffocating silence. Rebecca was an old colleague of Patrick's, someone who had known the restaurant since the days when her mother was still alive. When she saw Patrick, she didn't need words to understand what was happening. "Patrick, I heard about the incident yesterday," she began, approaching him with an empathetic smile. "I know how much this restaurant means to you. If you need help, I'm here." Patrick took a deep breath. He knew Rebecca was smart and creative, someone with practical ideas and refreshing energy. "I need all the help I can get," he admitted, gesturing to the empty restaurant. "We're in a crisis, Rebecca. We're not. I don't know what else to do." Rebecca looked around, noticing the discouraged looks on the staff. "So, the first thing we need to do is change the atmosphere here. If you lose trust, the restaurant loses its essence. And Patrick, we can't let that happen." She approached Jorge, who was standing near the counter, still visibly shaken by what had happened. "Jorge, right?" she said, her tone warm. "I've heard about you. Believe me, we all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn and move on. And here, you're not alone." Jorge looked up, surprised by Rebecca's kindness. Her words were a small relief, something he didn't know he needed to hear. With the group gathered, Rebecca suggested a plan. "Let's focus on what's special about the restaurant. The history, the food, and the people who frequent it. We need to create a welcoming environment again. And that starts with us." She began to propose small changes, redecorating the dining room to make it more inviting, updating the menu with some attractive promotions, and above all, transmitting a positive attitude to the customers who still showed up. Bruno, who had always been loyal to Patrick, felt a renewal of hope with Rebecca's enthusiasm. "I agree with her," he said, looking at the group. "Patrick, we are all here because we believe in this place. We are going to do this together." Patrick moved, realized that despite the difficulties, he had something valuable, a team that was willing to fight by his side. "Okay," he said with a shy smile. "If we are going to do this, let's do it our way, with honesty, though dedication, and above all, heart." As they outlined the first steps of the plan, a new energy began to fill the restaurant. Jorge, inspired by Rebecca's words, offered to help with anything. "I can arrange the tables or even promote the restaurant in some way," he said, shy but determined. Rebecca looked at him approvingly. "I love that attitude. We're going to need you." That afternoon, the restaurant felt different, not because the problems had disappeared, but because there was now a sense of purpose, a will to fight. Patrick knew it wouldn't be easy, but as he looked at Rebecca, Bruno, and Yorkshire, he sensed that they were ready to face the challenges together. "My mother always said that this restaurant is about more than food. It's about stories," he said, looking at the group. "And I think we're writing a new story now." And so, with the strength of the team and Rebecca's input, the restaurant began to take its first steps toward recovery. But Patrick knew there was still a long way to go, and that new challenges would soon arise. Days later, just as the restaurant was beginning to breathe a little life again, an unpleasant surprise appeared at the door. An inspector, with a stack of documents in his hands and a serious look in his eyes, he informed Patrick that the restaurant's records were out of date, and that, without immediate regularization, the place could be temporarily closed. Patrick felt his stomach turn. As if that weren't enough, he thought, as he listened to the inspector detail the list of demands. The costs of regularizing everything were high, and Patrick knew the money simply didn't exist. As soon as the inspector left, Patrick gathered his team. Rebecca, Bruno, and Jorge were attentive as he explained the situation. "We're at a critical point," he began, his voice thick with concern. "If we don't get these documents up to date, the restaurant will close. I need ideas. We can't fail now." Rebecca was the first to speak. "Patrick, we need to be creative. Let's use what we have to our advantage. Jorge mentioned the other day that he knows how to do social media. Maybe we can attract more customers while we sort out the paperwork." Patrick looked at Jorge, who nodded shyly. "Yes, I can help. Maybe if we spread the word about the restaurant, people will be interested in supporting it." Bruno also spoke up. "And we can do special events, something that will attract the attention of families in the community. A themed dinner, maybe. Anything to get the restaurant moving." Patrick listened attentively to the suggestions and felt a flame of hope ignite. "Okay," he said more firmly. "We'll try all of this. We can't give up now." That night, while Rebecca and Bruno worked on ideas to attract customers, Jorge took pictures of the restaurant and its most popular dishes, posting them on social media with captions like, "A restaurant full of history and love needs you. Come be a part of this journey." The posts quickly began to gain attention. People commented, shared, and to Patrick's surprise, some began showing up at the restaurant the next day. But not everything was cause for celebration. Clayton, the troublesome customer, the man who had caused a commotion days before, was back. He seemed even more determined to upset the balance of the restaurant. With a fake smile, he approached Patrick as the room began to fill up. "I see you're trying to keep the doors open," Clayton said sarcastically. "But it's only a matter of time before you can't anymore." Patrick gritted his teeth, maintaining his composure. "If you came here to eat, welcome. If not, I ask that you not disturb our customers." Clayton laughed, but before he could respond, Rebecca appeared next to Patrick, crossing her arms. "Clayton, if you don't have anything constructive to say, I suggest you enjoy the atmosphere and the menu. Or maybe you should look elsewhere." Rebecca's firmness took Clayton by surprise. He shrugged, clearly irritated, but left without causing any more trouble. Patrick looked at her gratefully. "You're amazing," he said, feeling that with Rebecca by his side, he could face anything. Meanwhile, Bruno's idea also began to take shape. They organized a special event at the restaurant, a community dinner with traditional dishes, live music, and a decor that harked back to the restaurant's origins. The event was a success. Families filled the dining room, laughing, chatting, and savoring the food that had the special touch that Patrick's mother had created. The team was closer than ever. Jorge, who had started out as an awkward helper, now excelled by managing social media and helping with service. Bruno, with his experience, kept the restaurant running smoothly, while Rebecca continued to be the strategic mind guiding everyone. The restaurant seemed to have found new life, but Patrick knew that there was still a lot of work to be done to keep everything running. And most of all, he knew that the battle to save his mother's dream was far from over. That night, as he closed the doors, Patrick looked at his team and felt a mix of relief and determination. He realized that he was not alone in this fight, and that, more than anything else, gave him the strength to keep going. "We're just getting started," he murmured, a smile on his face. The turning point had arrived. But new challenges still lay ahead. As the days passed, something unexpected began to happen. Social media, managed by Jorge, was attracting more attention than Patrick had imagined. Posts about the restaurant's history, its importance to the community, and the struggle to keep it afloat went viral, sparking curiosity and affection from many. People began showing up at the restaurant, not just to eat, but to support. New and old customers filled the tables, many of them sharing words of encouragement. "My mom used to come here when she was young," one woman told Patrick. "This place is special. We'll do whatever we can to help." Patrick couldn't believe what he was seeing. The once empty dining room was now pulsing with energy. The kitchen was bustling, and the staff was working with renewed vigor. Bruno and Rebecca led the efforts in the dining room, while Jorge, now more confident, helped set up tables and even suggested improvements in the service. However, the problems had not completely disappeared. Patrick needed to regularize the restaurant's documents, and the deadline was fast approaching. He knew that resources were limited, but he could not ignore the strength of the community that was behind him. Then something incredible happened. During one of the events organized by Bruno and Rebecca, an unexpected figure appeared. A local journalist who had heard about the restaurant's story through Jorge's social media. "We would like to tell this story in our next issue," she told Patrick. "People need to know about the struggle and the impact this place has on the community." Patrick hesitated. He had never been one to seek the spotlight, but he realized that this could be the opportunity he needed. "If it can help the restaurant, I'm willing," he replied with a shy smile. The article was published the following week and had a surprising impact. More people began visiting the restaurant, and some even made donations to help regularize the documents. The community, more united than ever, showed that this restaurant was not just a business. It was a symbol of love, resilience, and history. Rebecca, always attentive, suggested that they take advantage of the moment to continue innovating. "We have to keep the momentum going. Let's use this support to create new events, promotions, and, who knows, even expand the menu." Bruno and Jorge agreed, and together they began planning. Jorge, with his knowledge of technology, proposed creating an online campaign to finance the restaurant's regularization. "People want to help. Let's give them that opportunity." Chance. The campaign was launched and was an immediate success. Heartwarming testimonials from customers and employees were shared, touching the hearts of those who followed the story. Within days, the amount needed to settle the legal issues was raised. Patrick couldn't believe what was happening. The restaurant was not only recovering, but flourishing in ways he never imagined. And it was thanks to teamwork, community support, and the determination of everyone who believed in the dream. One night, as they were closing the restaurant after another busy day, Patrick gathered everyone together. "I have no words to express how grateful I am to each and every one of you. This place is more than a business. It is our story, our home, and together, we're making it possible." The staff applauded, and Patrick realized something his mother had always said. "The greatest challenges teach us the greatest lessons." The restaurant was no longer just a physical space. It was a symbol of resilience, a place where lives were changed and stories were connected. Patrick knew the fight wasn't over, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like the future was bright. And with his team by his side, he was ready to face whatever came his way. Months later, the restaurant had been completely transformed. The tables were always full, and the once quiet and empty dining room was now filled with laughter, conversation, and the delicious aroma of food that honored Patrick's mother's legacy. The restaurant wasn't just a place to eat. It had become a gathering place for the community, a place where stories were shared and memories were made. Patrick, watching the action around him, felt emotional, but he knew that none of it would have been possible without the team who had stood by him through the toughest times. That night, after work, he gathered everyone in the dining rooms. "I want to tell you something important," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "You are not just employees of this restaurant. You are part of my family. Each of you has made this place not only survive, but thrive." He looked at Bruno and continued, "Bruno, your loyalty and dedication home have been invaluable. You have excelled so much that you deserve more responsibility. That is why, starting today, you will be the manager always of the restaurant." Bruno was visibly moved. "Patrick, I don't know what to say. Thank you. I will do my best, as I always have." Then Patrick turned to Jorge. "Jorge, when you first came to this restaurant, you were lost. But now you have found your place. I want you to know that, starting today, you will be our new cashier. In addition, I will pay the rent for an apartment for you. It is time to start a new phase of your life." Jorge could not hold back the tears. "I never imagined that someone could believe in me so much. Thank you, Patrick, from the bottom of my heart." Finally, Patrick turned to Rebecca. "Rebecca, you were the missing piece that turned this whole thing around. Your determination and creativity brought new life to the restaurant. But more than that, you brought something special to me." Rebecca smiled, and Patrick took her hand. "I realized that our connection goes beyond work. You are my partner in every way, and I want this restaurant to be a reflection of what we are building together." The room fell silent for a moment, but soon everyone began to applaud and celebrate. In the following months, Patrick and Rebecca made their relationship official and got married in a simple but meaningful ceremony, with friends, family, and of course, the restaurant staff in attendance. The place became not only a thriving business, but a true home for everyone who passed by. Bruno took on his new role with mastery, helping to keep the restaurant running like a well-oiled machine. Jorge, now with a place to call home, worked hard and used his creativity on social media to continue attracting customers. The restaurant grew even more, hosting community events, fundraising dinners, and even cooking classes. It became a symbol of unity, resilience, and love, honoring the memory of Patrick's mother and celebrating the new stories that were created there every day. As Patrick looked out over the bustling dining room on another busy night, he smiled with deep gratitude. He knew that the restaurant was much more than a place to serve food. It was a place where dreams were reborn, where people found support, and where love transformed even the most difficult moments. What began as a crisis became an example of how, with determination, faith, and unity, it is possible to overcome any obstacle. And as Patrick turned out the lights in the restaurant that night, he whispered to himself, "My mother would be proud." If you like this story, leave your comment below.